quite a number of years I've been involved in the preservation, archiving and re-exhibition of media artworks and time-based artworks through the Media Preservation Lab at DJCAD at the University of Dundee. Quite a lot of this work has been involved in curation and the idea of the living archive and making sure that these works are seen rather than them sitting in some kind of warehouse and not getting out there. As part of InGAME, I had the opportunity to develop these ideas into other projects. There was one day I was researching something else and I was looking at this old arts magazine from Scotland called Alba, and I came across this article written by Chris Rowland, who works in the 3D Viz Lab, but this was from the mid-80s, and it was a review of a performance artwork called Mainbeam by Charlie Hooker, which was performed in 1983 in the Trinity Square car park in Gateshead, which was made famous by its inclusion in the film Get Carter. So I kind of thought about this and thought, I wonder what it would be like to try and recreate that piece in virtual reality. I spoke to Charlie Hooker and he was in agreement that this would be quite a good thing to try. And one of the main reasons that we wanted to do this was this car park had been demolished, so the car park was no longer available. So it turned out that Charlie Hooker had built a scale model of the car park, which we were able to use as a reference for the levels in which this performance took place. So we used photogrammetry on his car park model and recreated the car park as a scale 3D model. He used cars, but also had pedestrians in it as well who were hitting pieces of metal. Now Charlie Hooker's a performance artist but also a sound artist, so for him this was kind of this symphony and ballet within this car park. Charlie had the original tapes as well from all of the cars, so what we did was use the Media Preservation Lab at DJCAD to capture and digitise these tapes, and we'll be able to put these back into the cars that we will animate in the space to create the sound. To make sure with the correct reverb and the correct ambience and the correct atmosphere, I've been taking impulse response recordings in a car park that's very similar in Dundee to the original car park. So what this involves is putting a microphone at one end of a room and a speaker at the other end of the room, and then you send out white noise and then you record the sound, and then you can recreate the actual sound of the space by adding it into your VR model later. The other important part of the project is there was 4 performers marching back and forwards in front of the cars which were moving around the space. These performers were responding to marks that Charlie Hooker kept putting on the floor throughout the performance, and every time they went over a mark they would hit these 2 pieces of metal together. So in order to get these characters as authentic as possible, we're using motion capture to capture their actual movements and putting these back into the piece with an avatar around them to make them look as realistic as possible. The advantages of doing it in VR is that we can see the piece again as it was, as close to the original. It's a record of the performance while the artist is still around, who's got a massive amount of input into this, and it's a piece that curators can look at if they want to try and remake this piece in real life in the future.
So we're going back now, I think 40 years with this piece. 1983 was the year it was done in, and it was part of a series of works that I made linking together visual art and choreography and theatre to sound, to music. I was asked a few months ago now, out of the blue actually, by a team at Dundee University, if I would be interested to collaborate with them in terms of using an old but still living artist's archive in a sort of new way. In conversation it became apparent that the idea was to turn a performance that had been done, well in this case 40 years ago, into documentation which had archival integrity but could use the medium of virtual reality so that a viewer could put on a headset and could potentially watch and move around the space and watch the piece of work from an audience point of view, or indeed sit in the car and be one of the drivers, or potentially be one of the percussionists, one of the pedestrians in the work. Now that seems to me to be a fantastic idea from my point of view, because the whole point of all this work back then was to encourage the general public to take part in artworks. So to do that in a kind of 21st century way through virtual reality seemed to me completely appropriate. So I went for it. I thought it was a great idea.
So 3D Biz Lab has been working on data visualization, and we're pioneering on utilizing and implementing the animation and VFX technologies into a scientific research area. So the core technology or terminology or methodology of the 3D Biz Lab is actually using visualization using the lens-based technology, and the photogrammetry is the key elements. So we actually build the model of the car part using photogrammetry, and then we actually use 3D software to optimize it to make sure it actually runs smoothly in the virtual reality.
The InGAME project has been a fantastic thing to be part of. It's one of the creative clusters in the UK, and InGAME, which is Innovation in Games and Media Enterprise, the full title kind of gives you the full spectrum of how gaming technology, gaming and other media enterprise has been fed into R&D projects, both within the local region but also nationally and internationally. And I think what's been really exciting is how we've applied that technology to other industries, so whether it's been in agriculture or health and well-being or in a whole range of sectors, the application of gaming and media technology to these to devise new and innovative ways of modelling, communicating, exploring different aspects of those interdisciplinary aspects has been really, I think, really inspiring and exciting. And I think what we bring to it is a very slightly different lens in terms of 3D visualization, the use of immersive experiences within both things like contemporary art, communication, design. In terms of the project that Adam Lockhart is working on, it's really fantastic. It builds entirely from another area of our expertise, which is around archives and how we archive and document temporal works, so temporal media, temporal artworks, things which are immersive in their experience at the point of contact with them in their original form. And I think what's really exciting is the application of AR, VR, using all the technology through the gaming engine, the virtual production engine, to think about how we might recreate some seminal moments within art history. It's really about how do we find a way to crystallise, connect and translate the information around those temporal immersive experiences so that we can reread them, we can re-experience them. They'll never be the same, but we can actually start to attune our visual acuity or whatever it is, or our means to read those experiences, but we have to recreate them in order to understand how we then create audience and develop and build that audience experience. So I think it's a really critical project because we've spent years in Duncan of Jordenston thinking about how we create archives that reflect those changing technologies, changing worlds, changing means of operation. So we have things like the Alistair MacLennan archive, we work with the Richard DeMarco archive, there's a European Women's Video archive as older projects here. So there's quite a linear, long history of thinking about how do we document temporal experiences so that people can access them for the future.